So me and this guy right here today to see about putting some wheel bearings on this trailer. 40-foot Gator made, 12,000 pound Dexters. Should be the same for, you know, most all trailers that run a 12,000 pound, 10,000 pound, 15,000 pound axle. All the same process, a little different here and there, but you'll get the point. What we got here is our bearings that we're putting in. Of course, there's your inner, and then you got your outer and your seal. And always try to buy some of these. You pick them up at the parts house, the tang washers. You can reuse your tang washers, but sometimes you break the ears, you bend them back and forth too much. You know, it's just nice to have you some extras in case yours are bad or you just feel like changing them. There's just really it's one of them things you you wished you had when you needed them, and the parts houses are closed or they'll have them in stock. So go ahead and pick some of them up. It'll save you a lot of headache. And of course, over here, you know, this is the oil that I run. I like it. Some guys don't like it. Some guys use regular gear oil. Some guys grease their bearings. It's kind of all the same. You know, with a grease bearing, oil does not leak. That is very true. But, you know, with an oil bearing, and you can see the oil level, you can have a better eye of what's going on day to day during your trip. When you stop and get fuel, or you do your 30-minute break, or when you get up in the morning and do a pre-trip, post-trip, whatever you want to. Anytime you're out of your truck, just walk around your trailer and you can see the level of oil in the hubs, and right away you know, oh shit, there's a problem. So you got to make a habit of walking around the trailer every time you stop. It's just it's nice to do anyway, but if you want to grease your bearings, that's fine too. I'm not for either one. Either, they both work well. But if you grease your bearings, please have a maintenance schedule in place every so many miles or a timed interval to where you are going to pull that hub off and look at your bearings. Because with the grease, you have no clue. There's no visible clue when you're walking around the trailer if something is going wrong. So, you know, keep in mind, if you use grease, please have a maintenance schedule so you can look for yourself and just save yourself a headache by being broke on the side of the road because you greased your bearings, said, hey, they're good, and 200,000 miles later, bearing locked up because all the grease was slung out of it and overheated. You know, just protect yourself from that. This job's a very nasty job, so you're gonna need a metric butt ton of this stuff. It doesn't matter what you buy. I don't think you need 2 cases, but it's better be safe than sorry. And what you don't use, you can put in your truck and keep for a later date. Or, you know, you're always having a buddy that needs some. So eventually, it'll go away. So, man, that stuff is awesome. All right, tools for the job. Of course, you know, my lug nut socket. I run 12,000 pound Dexter. So I got an 1 1/16 lug nut. Not every trailer's the same, so that's just my setup. Let's use my 1/2 inch gun to take my lug nuts off. Use my 3/8 gun, and these are metric Allen heads. That is what holds your brake caliper on. This is electric over hydraulic setup on this trailer, disc brake. So these tools are for the brakes. 19mm wrench, 3/8 drive ratchet, of course your Allen head metric sockets, and I use my impact for a little quicker job. Then my grease cap, oil cap, and the outer bearing are both 2.5 inches. This socket fits the oil cap and the nuts on the axle. Of course, you need a torque wrench, you know, to torque everything back down. Have a punch that I use to pry the tangs up on my washer. And you gotta have a BFH. You got to have one, fellas. Now this hammer here is kind of dual purpose. I built this out of a gooseneck ball. I broke one on a previous truck of mine. So then I just, you know, hey, took a disc axle my dad had laying around and welded it to it. But the reason I like it is really heavy, and it has this big blunt end on the end, so I can use this as a hammer And I also use it to start my seals because it's very big and blunt and better than trying to start them with a little punch here. Pry bar for various things, prying your brake calipers open so you can get the brake pads to let go of the rotor so you can get them off easy. And also you're putting it between the rotor and the caliper bracket, and you can actually pop the rotor, the bearing off of the race, or not the race, but where it rides on the spindle. So much easier than fighting with it all day. And then I have a brass drift, or brass punch, however you want to say this, that I use to, drive my seal out. And I do this unconventionally. I do this the way that Dexter says not to do it. I always flip my hub over and I tap the inner bearing out, which then takes the seal out with it. That is why I use a brass drift, because it is much softer than the bearing. The drift takes the brunt of the damage, and there's no damage on the bearing. So I highly recommend a brass drift for anything that you don't want to damage. Delicate. And of course I have air tools here. Air chuck and air pressure gauge. While you have your tires off, while they're out, while they're off, it's just so much easier to roll them around how you want them with the valve stems up or down, whatever suits you, and check the pressure in both tires while they're on the ground. It's just so much easier. You go ahead and check them, air them up, get them where you want them. When you put them back on, you know they're right. And just a good practice. Of course, I have a drain pan. We're going to put under the axle to catch any oil or whatever comes out. Shouldn't much come out, but you're going to lose just a little bit. And then we have, it's just a stainless steel pan. I think it's like a pan out of like a buffet style food service situation. But we're going to take this and put our mineral spirits in it, and you'll just kind of show you how to clean a bearing. Now, I am replacing my bearings with new bearings, so I'm not going to be cleaning anything here except for my hubs that I'm keeping. But just mineral spirits, diesel fuel, gasoline, anything. Brake clean works. Just brake clean's expensive, at like $3 a can. It adds up. So just get you something, put in a pan. I'll show you how to do this, and you can wash them off real good. Check them out. Just get you a good overview of what you're dealing with. In case you're going to reuse your bearings, you always want to check them and make sure that they are, they're worthwhile. They're not going to let you down a week later down on the side of the road. And last thing you're going to need is plenty of grease rags. All right, when you're taking these tires off, see, this oil cap is plastic. So I have seen it a few times where you just snatch the tire off, you're not holding the weight off the hub, and it slides down and hits your oil cap and just breaks it. And a broke cap, it may crack it, or you may see it break, but if you don't and it cracks it, it's a place for oil to get out, and it could cause you some problems down the road. So keep in mind to keep the tires off, the wheels off of this cap. Got a runaway lug nut. On these are 17.5-inch commercial tires. Option GatorMate gives us, I think PJ, they probably all offer it, but either way, 16 ply. These wheels are super heavy duty wheels. They are heavy. So what I like to do, I like to turn our holes to the side where you can get a hold of it with your hands. Just kind of help yourself wheel it off. And once you get it kind of right here, put your knee into it and pull it off without hitting that grease cap. All right, so here we're going to need a pry bar and our socket. What I like to do is put my pry bar through some lug nuts like this. Make sure we're going backwards here. Get my grease. There it is. Set this under here. These should only be about 30 foot-pounds, so they're not real tight. Keep it when you take these off. Make sure the O-ring's on them. You don't want to leave the O-ring on the hub and then get to messing with the hub and lose the O-ring. And then when it comes to it, you're looking for the O-ring, can't find it. So you always want to make sure it's there. Set this up here where it doesn't get damaged. All right. Now, this is your tang washer, fellas. See this? That is the tang. You have two locked down on each nut. Two this way. Whoa. Which toes? Alright, let's try this again. Alright, so you get up under there, kind of tap it up like that, and you can turn your screwdriver. Keep on tapping it until it goes straight up like that. Then you do the other one. Ooh. Watch your fingers, fellas. Alright, so our tang washers are straightened up. Now, put our pry bar back in here, and it fell out. Give you something to pry against. Now this nut here should be about 150 foot-pound when you tighten it up. Between 120, 150. A little different everywhere you look, but well, hell, they got 3 on this one. So we're gonna do it again. All right, let's try that. There we go. Once you break it loose, you can put this away. And this is where you kind of got to keep track of what's going on. It's not complicated, but you want to lay it in a way where you know when you put it back together, it is the correct way. So I always like to lay them like I take them off. Pull the nut off, you grab this tang washer, kind of wiggle it. It's keyed, so you take it off. And if the tang washer is in good shape and I'm going to reuse it, I'll leave these inner tangs bent out, and we'll get to why that is in a minute. So you're gonna lay that on top of that nut, and this one should be hand tight. Don't be shocked when you grab it and it turns, because it's not tight. It's made to preload bearings, and you back it off, tighten it up again in the back, So this should be just hand tight. You take this one off, and behind this you're gonna have your flat washer. All right, now you have a flat washer here. It's a little tricky because that grease has a pretty good suction on it. You can take a pick or something and reach in here and kind of get a hold of it, pull it out. Or you can wait until you pull your hub off, and it will come out with it with the bearing, which is one more thing to catch. So try to get what you can off. All right, so get the brakes off. This is electric over hydraulic disc brake, and I highly recommend this setup if you're going to buy a trailer, new or used, and you have the money that you can be kind of picky with what you buy, right? Get electric over hydraulic. This beats the drum brake hands down. Electric drum brake, no maintenance really at all, and it stops so much better. So if you got the money, option for them, you won't regret it. And to get these off, I have an 8mm Allen head here, and it's a 19mm nut on the back. So just hold that. I always set my stuff right up here so I don't lose track of it. And I take my wrench and I put on the bolt itself, put pressure to ease that back, right? Then I take this, the boxed end there, open end, sorry. Pull that out, right? Easy enough. Set that up there. And we're going to do the same thing on the back, on the bottom. Ooh. Together. Put your wrench back on the bolt. Put your open end here. The reason you do this, fellas, is this metal has sharp ends where it's going in and out. And I've done it. I'm sure a lot of you have done it, where you got your finger and you spin something and you get a sliver of metal in your finger. This prevents all that. Get our socket back out of there. There we go. Leave all this up here because these tools are unique to this job. You won't use them anywhere else on this particular job, so I just leave them up there. All right, now to get our caliper off. Take our handy dandy pry bar, and I will put in, you don't want to put it on the brake material. Just kind of right in here, and just give it a quick little adjustment there. Do the same thing on the other side. All right, so now caliper is loose. You can take these, just wiggle them around. They come out. Now pay attention to how these are sitting. You want, it looks like this. You're gonna put it back in just like that. When I done this, I was like, well, damn, they'll do it this way or this way. I didn't know, but they're all like this. So I'll lay these up here as well. You got one front, or one top and one bottom. Just gonna hang them up here. So then you just pick your caliper up. Your brake pads are gonna stay or go. It doesn't really matter. And I sit it right here on the leaf spring to be out of my way. Take your brake pads off and look at them. Make sure they're not below spec. These are in good shape. Say, fellas, these have 130,000 miles on them. Now, I'm not one to slide my tires. I brake with plenty of room when I have time. So it's very worthwhile to mind your brakes. You just treat them right. All right, now your brakes off, you can get the hub off. This is where I like to use a pry bar. If you'll look right over here, come in, go to the bottom. Right here is where I like to put my pry bar. Right here. So you just put your pry bar right in there. You can, the jack's kind of in the way. There we go, like that. All right, now as you pull, you can let me turn my pry bar around, do it again. Well, situate it right here. All right. Just like that. Keeps from beating and banging all day, cussing, having a fit. Take your outer bearing, sit up here, out of your way. Then grab your hub, give it a wiggle. Alright fellas, this is why I put a towel on my trailer. Yeah, trailer's a great workbench. But if you don't want your trailer to be oil stained and just looking kind of nasty, put a towel down on it. Always stand it straight up. And here you can see how we took our washer and nut, tang washer and outer nut off. It's exactly opposite. So if you put it back on, it's like that. So I always try to leave things so you know, like if I walked away from this job and somebody else came up to do it, they would know the order it goes back. That's the way I like to look at things. You know, with the mineral spirits, so I'm replacing my bearings, but we're going to show you how to clean them. And if you always take your bearing and give it a roll around, make sure that there's no pitting or anything seriously wrong with it. Make sure everything feels good in your hand when you're rolling it. You know, you can check your play. You just take the bearing, drop it in your mineral spirits here, right? Kind of start rolling it all around. No real science to it. What you're trying to do is get the old oil out of the bearing. You're going to reuse the bearing. You want it to have new oil and stuff in it. You don't want to put old nasty bearing back in your axle. Alright. You're going to have spots you have a brush, it's best to use a brush, like a bristle brush. Take a brush, really get in there after, you know, really clean it up. There, fellas, keep in mind these are sharp edges, and you got your fingers in there swirling all around. You don't want to get a shiver of metal in your finger, so just keep in mind. So once you get it all cleaned up, you can tell now it's pretty clean. You roll it around, you look. If you're really particular about it, you can roll each bearing individually. You know, just you're looking for things that's out of the ordinary. You can see on mine that there's, you know, little lines where it's been riding on the race. That is nothing out of the ordinary. I would reuse this bearing. I wouldn't be scared to reuse it. But I've got one that looks bad, and I just bought a whole set for every in or out on every wheel, because just 130,000 miles on the trailer, and I'm doing one. I don't want to have to come back and do another next week, and I don't want the cycle of that. So that's why I'm replacing them. So that is how you clean a bearing. All right, fellas, we're going to drive this bearing out the back to get our seal out. Now keep in mind that is not the Dexter approved method. Most of them, you recommend the seal puller. I have one, I do, but this is just the way I do it. It's easier, and if you got up a gentle hand, I mean, you can't just be in there slam bamming around like a bull in the sound shop. You always want to clean, make sure all your tools are clean. You don't want dirt on your hammer or dirt on your punch while you're in there banging around. You're going to add more stuff to clean inside your hub here. But if you look, I'll just take and put my brass drift on the bearing here, and keep your fingers out of the way, of course. Give it a little tap on one side, move over, tap there. Just kind of do it, you know, work your way four corners around. Don't get impatient. Just keep hitting it, and it should do it. Keep on keeping on. There you go. Now your seal is out on the ground, and once we move this hub, there you have it. And just show you that we didn't damage this bearing, we're gonna drop it in here real quick. And see, using your brass drift, there's no marks on the bearing. So now this mark here is from a previous endeavor I did with this. I put seals in I put all 4 seals in this trailer right after I first got it. I had 1 leaking, and like I say, I hate doing things in singles, so I put 4 in it miles and miles and miles and miles ago. But that is from a regular punch. I didn't have a brass strip at the time. Picked one up, and I enjoy it. But when you take the seal out, to leave it laying just like this. I'm gonna clean it just so I can show you here. But on this side, on the old bearing and the new bearing, or seal, on the old seal and the new seal, you have an oil side and you have a dry side. So you want to make certain that you don't flip it around. It'll go in. It'll go in upside down. It will. But I promise you it won't work. As you can see, oil side. Keep in mind you have an oil side. Don't get ahead of yourself and flip it over. This is the dry side. You see, got all the dirt on it. So keep that in mind, because when you turn your hub over, when you get ready to do this, you're going to flip your hub over. And it's going to be, you got to put it in backwards. So keep that in mind. All right, because I'm replacing bearings, I am going to drive my races out, and outer, inner. I'm going to drive them out, replace them with new races to go with new bearings. If you're not replacing bearings, if you're just cleaning bearings and replacing a leaking seal or anything like just your general maintenance where you're not replacing the bearings, this is not necessary. You just throw the new bearings back, or throw your bearings that go to these races back in here. You're good to go. And you don't technically have to change the race with a new bearing. A lot of people don't. I've done it myself back in the day, but if I'm putting a new bearing in, I'm going to put a new race in, because this rig here makes my living, so I'm trying to do the best I can by it. Anyway, it's got little recesses here. You can hit the race with your punch. Just give her a whack. Back and forth like this. And that race is out. We'll get this out of the way so we can kind of show you what the race is, in case you don't know, in case you're unaware. Your race is in here. It's in your hub. The bearing can't ride on your hub. This is a cast iron assembly here. This wouldn't work. So the way it's designed is your race is driven into your hub. Your bearing sits in this. It fits all cozy in there. When the bearing rolls, your tires roll, it rolls the bearing. And you can see how the bearings are going around. They're racing around the race. I think that's why it's called this. I'm not 100% sure, but it makes a lot of sense to me. So that is what a race does. That's how a bearing works as well. But the reason we change a race is, the bearings wear into the race. You can look and you see the lines and the wear patterns on this race. If you look at this bearing, you'll see the matching wear pattern on each bearing. So each roller in the bearing. That is why I changed the race with the bearing, because it is wore in to the race the way this bearing likes. Just like putting a new brake pads on a worn out rotor that's all grooved up and nasty looking. Yeah, it's going to stop, but it's going to wear the brake pads to match that rotor, and so it just makes no sense. So just take the few extra minutes. It's going to cost money too, because the bearing is sold separate. The race is sold separate. Some bearings come as a set. You need to ask that question when you're buying them. If you need a race, you need to make sure that it's either a set in the box, or if you got to buy it separate. All right, fellas, once you get your bearings out, and we took our races out, see they're missing. We have our new races here, but once you get the bearings out, you really need to clean this thing up. You can see it's so oily, and you flip it over, and you look right here, get tons of buildup from just going down the road, general dirty stuff. You don't want to put a seal in or a bearing or anything around all that. Alright, now you got it all cleaned up. There's no oil and what have you in there. Dirt, foreign materials, whatever you want to call it. Just take you a clean cloth and, you know, kind of make sure there's no dirt where you're going to drive this race in. Again, if you're not doing new bearings, the race is already installed, so you just forgo this step. We have a new race here. It is a Temkin 28622, in case you're needing one. Put that in there. Make sure your race is clean. Alright. Now you want the conical side up. You want the bearing to sit in it. So if you drive it in upside down, the bearing won't go. So you want the riding down. Alright, you can see why I use a brass strip. It took a pretty good beating there. If you look at the bearing, the race, you see little shards of brass kind of all around it, and there's no damage to the race. So I'd rather this take a beating than what my bearing is going to ride on. And I believe it's all the way down. It's got a lip that sits on under here. It drives down too. If you're not sure, you can just kind of, you know, look in from that side. You can see where it's supposed to be riding. You drive it all the way down until it's flush. And also you can tell there's a little lip right here. It should be kind of flush with more trickier. It's in a pretty deep hole. Get our race. And this number is a 3920. Remember, you want your riding down. Don't put it in upside down. Bearing won't go in it. So you want the conical side facing up. Sit it in there. Make sure it's pretty well. Sounds like it's all the way down. You can hear a real solid sound once it goes down. It sounds kind of hollow driving in, but once you hit something, it becomes pretty solid. Again, you can look in through the other side. You can see through there where it's actually supposed to be sitting. And it is sitting in the right spot. So that is all the way down. This one's all the way down. This is the back of the wheel. So we're gonna put our bearing in first. Put the seal in first. It's gonna be a bad news. You're gonna take your seal back out, put your bearing back in, and you're gonna feel really dumb. Ask me how I know that. Now, I know it's a brand new bearing, but you always want to look at them just to make sure they are what they are. You know, you don't want to find anything wrong with it. Somebody may have cleaned it up real nice and used it and gave it back to them. Who knows? You just check it out, make sure everything's good with it. Make sure it's clean. And you just set it down in there like so. Make sure it's seated in the race good. Clean our hands up again. Now, for our seal. Remember, it says oil sob. along with your part numbers and whatever. The other side is just blank. You want the writing down. You want this side to go to the oil, which is inside the hub. So I'm just gonna take it, flip it, just ease it down in there like so. This is where I like my hammer. They make seal drivers for all this, but I don't own any of them. Just never really found a need for them. I always kind of found my own way. Make sure everything's clean so you don't knock any dirt into a clean work environment. I'll take this into my hammer. Now hold pressure on the seal on one side and kind of just tap it around. Alrighty. I get my drift out again. I'm going to use the smooth side on this. This may tear our seal up. You just take little love taps as you go around in a circle. All right, and we have a seal installed, and you just always want to take and just kind of clean this lip up. Make sure there's no red stuff, dirt, anything may have gotten in there. And that is how you install the seal on the inner bearing. All right, got ahead of myself there and forgot to oil the bearing. I normally drop the bearing in while it's sitting straight up. Drop the bearing in the race, and then I put some oil around the rollers of the bearing. Then I drive the seal. So, you know, you can, no worries. You just take, get right inside this seal here, and get some oil in there. You're not trying to, you know, be super specific about it, but you just want a little bit of oil in them rollers. So whenever you take off out of your yard or shop or whatever you're doing this in, there's a little lubrication inside those rollers to give it a little start before while the oil gets up to the bearing out of the hub. So that's just a quick little tip there. That's what I do. And now you are ready to sit this on the spindle. Mr. Cody. Mr. Cody. What's up there, big dog? Hey guys, I hope you're enjoying part one here. This video is too long, so we're going to make a second one. Tune in to catch the reassembly.
Cody, bro. Hey,
hope you enjoy it.
Cody.
Thank you.
Cody. Yeah.